Frazier adding more numbers, more yards to those. Oh, they don't have him yet. Look at Tommy Frazier. How many tackles can one man break? Touchdown.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into the Play the Fight Song College Football Show, the Nebraska side of things, as we are ready to preview Colorado. Previewed UTEP for you last week, told you all about the Miners and what you can expect to see from that Miners/Austin P level team. Nebraska handles business, wins 40-7, which we'll recap that one briefly before we get into Colorado tonight. But it's an important week. There's a couple things we got to get off the table here first. When it comes to Colorado week, I know the state gets a little bit on edge, especially with games going the way they've gone the last few times we've matched up with the Buffs. And they do a lot of talking, especially now in the new era under Deion Sanders. We will see how the game goes, because I think this Nebraska team, obviously based off last week, gives you a new look, a really good look, in my opinion. So let's go into the UTEP game with saying that. Before we dive into Colorado, I'll tell you all about it. If you've never been here before, my name's Parks. I'm the host of the Play the Fight Song College Football Show. We cover the entire country when it comes to that show, so check it out. If you love college football, it's the place to be. We also do the Nebraska side of things, and then Jake covers Iowa State for us. He does a great job there, and JP does the Iowa side of things. Those two just combined for the Cyhawk preview, so if you're one of those fans just randomly checking around YouTube and stumbled upon a Nebraska video, check out our Iowa and Iowa State coverage. It's fantastic. So shout out to those guys. And we have a big show coming up this week with the week 2 slate in general. So check that out on Wednesday night. But we are excited to be here. Let me be very clear. Colorado week is very important to me as a lifelong Nebraskan. This rivalry means a ton. It's that team just west of us that nobody likes. We love to take over their stadium, and we just haven't been able to find a way to beat them. So that is the importance of this week to me. I am fortunate enough to not have stumbled upon Buffs fans a ton in my life. However, they are kind of crawling out of the woods, kind of like Chiefs fans over the last 10 years. Even existing Chiefs fans can probably agree to that one. But Colorado fans are just coming out of nowhere. So hopefully if you're new and you're a Colorado fan and you're listening to this, you've come to the right spot, because I'm going to give you true opinions, and it's not going to be not based off of football stuff. It's going to be really what I think of this football team and what Nebraska can do to either handle them, or we're going to get into a close battle like we have before. So with saying that, let's go into the UTEP recap. Nebraska wins this one 40-7. Pretty dominant from start to finish. I mean, you got a little PTSD ridden in the first couple of quarters. UTEP strikes quick. They were really efficient that drive, coming off a 4th down stop, which I believe gave them the momentum. I didn't really love the call there to go for it on 4th. They do, and UTEP gains momentum and all of a sudden scores, evens things up 7-7. And then you're kind of getting that weary feeling like, oh, here we go again. We've seen this before. Luckily, the defense made a change in the game. The safety was huge. That was a great job by the defensive front. They were pretty good all day. I thought the screen game, which we told you was going to be a massive part of UTEP's offensive production, really was held up well all day long. So shout out to the Nebraska defense. Again, the black shirts came to play. And they really handled themselves. So shout out to Nebraska's defense, because they're going to carry us to a lot of close battles and through some tough times with a true freshman quarterback. Let's go into Dylan Raiola. It's really hard not to be like, whoa, man. The kid, I get it. It's UTEP/Austin P, whatever you want to call it. But he was smooth. I mean, it didn't look like he had much pressure on his shoulders. He was really comfortable in the pocket. And it was weird to see a quarterback go through progressions sort of the way he did. And it's not weird in the fact that, wow, Nebraska's been so bad. It's just we haven't had a lot of quarterbacks progress through their reads like that. He checked 3 times into a 45-yard gain from Emmett Johnson. That's not something normal 18-year-old true freshmen do. And definitely not at Nebraska. I think there are several situations that popped up last week that in previous times we probably would have been like, okay, Harburg probably would have tippy-tapped a gain for 3, maybe tried to run somebody over. Because Sims had a bad problem with that too, where it was one read And then that second read, if it wasn't there, if it was kind of there, he's chucking it and it's getting picked. And if it wasn't there, he'd try and tuck it away. He couldn't find a way out of the pocket because he wasn't paying attention. And then all of a sudden he's sacked or he's fumbling the football. So, yeah, it's been a while since we've had a quarterback that we felt like we really could go through the progressions the way he was supposed to. So it was good to see. And Raiola, without sounding too overhyped, because I understand the situation and the opponent, but it was just smooth. Like he lived up to it. I don't want to say he went beyond it. I like Matt Rule's response of not saying he was absolutely perfect, but it was really good. So looking to build off that, I thought the protection up front was probably the most impressive part for me. I thought the run game was good, but that all starts up front as well. I thought our offensive line opened some gaping holes, at least from the views I had in Memorial Stadium, and they protected him really well. He got hit once, and that was kind of on him too. He kind of went into it as he stepped up in the pocket, but it was really good. I thought the offensive line looked really good. I think the couple of times they got beat, Mo Westmoreland came through, and it was on Benhart. And Benhart's a guy that has faced a ton of adversity in his career at Nebraska, but can bounce back from it pretty quickly. And I do like the matchup up front this weekend, which I'll get into. But on the defensive side of things, I thought guys who had a good day, John Bullock was really good at the linebacker position. Mekhi Bayer was really good at the linebacker position. I thought Hartzog played pretty well. He was our leading tackler. He had a pick. Granted, he did get beat on that one-on-one, but he was pretty good and bounced back well as well. And then at the safety position, Gifford and Singleton, they're always going to make their impacts. It may not be on the tackling sheet, but they're always in good spots to put our defense in good scenarios. So I do like those two. Those are kind of my main takeaways from the offense and defense side of things for Nebraska. And I want to transfer that over to the Colorado game because we got to talk a lot about the upfront presence for the Buffs. Wrap up UTEP as best I can. Take it for what it is. It's awesome to get off to a 1-0 start. We haven't done it in quite some time. It was hot. I thought the fans showed up, were loud for a decent majority of the game until it got, to a 30-point game. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, it's 90 degrees. I am wet from sweating. And I heard there were people passing out in North Stadium. So shout out to those people if you're back awake for being out there as long as you were. Maybe a little bit more water this weekend because I do believe it's going to be one of the best atmospheres, at least in my lifetime, probably similar to Miami in 2014, Oklahoma in 2010, Texas in 2009. Like there are some good ones out there, and I really do think this one's going to be in a very similar fashion. So that's it on UTEP. Let's go into the Buffs. Let's talk about Colorado. Leading off, let's just give you the basics. It's Colorado. It's an all-time rival. We're 49-21 against them. I don't want to talk about the ties. That's stupid. It should never be a thing. But 49-21 is an insane record. But at one point, it was 49-18. All of a sudden, here we find ourselves 3 down in the series in the most recent times. They beat Scott Frost in his opening game at Memorial Stadium. We go to Folsom, blow a lead the next year, and then they get us last year. I was in Boulder for that debacle that occurred last year. It was just the turnover bug got Nebraska, and they really couldn't bounce back from it. Jeff Sims had a lone touchdown run. I guess you can count the Harburg-Fedone touchdown at the end if you want to, but 36-14 was the final on that one. And Buffs fans really thought they dominated that game from start to finish. I really don't think, and I think you can agree that scoreboard did not reflect the way that game went. I thought we were way further into the game than maybe they'll tell you online, on message boards, wherever they want to tell you. It was the 13-7 games with 7 minutes left in the third quarter. So they can say whatever they want, but it was a closer game with a young and inexperienced team with a incapable quarterback at the time. But we progressed throughout the year, got better. We went from 0-2 and finished 5-7, and they went from 3-0 to 4-8. So it's the season went down the line. I really felt like if Nebraska would have gotten Colorado later in the year, it would have been a better matchup for us. They really caught Colorado on top of the world after TCU and all the online things going around this year. There's just as much going around about Nebraska as there is Colorado. So it's going to make for an elite matchup to watch. And for most of us in red that day are going to be a part of. So I'm excited for talking about the Colorado offense. You got to talk about the weapons. It's weapons galore out there. They do a really good job at recruiting in the skill position, adding transfers into the skill position. Everybody knows the main names. You can't see them enough. Shadur Sanders, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn Jr. We'll talk more about Jimmy Horn Jr. because he had a big week last week against North Dakota State. I do like the Will Shepherd kid on the outside. He's a transfer from Vandy, big, long receiver that will be another weapon that we kind of got to lock down because they're going to want to throw the ball a lot after they figure out the interior run defense that Nebraska has. Looking at their offense on film, both from last year and from last week, it's a very Scott Frost-esque offense now. I feel like, they had a good offense last year. Sean Lewis goes to San Diego State. He's the head coach there now. That was their offensive coordinator last year. They bring in a new one this year. And it's a very Scott Frost offense, and it's a lot of wide receiver motion to give you multiple looks to base off of. They want to see how you adjust and read from there. Jimmy Horn Jr. is going to be that guy in motion most of the time. He's the fastest on their team, so they say. And he's the one that they want to get mixed throughout this offense. The long extended plays that Colorado found themselves in against North Dakota State is really where they hurt the Bison. And I think they're going to look to do more of the same against a not inexperienced, but a newer spotted Nebraska defense. Buford's back at corner. He had a couple of hiccups last week, but he was pretty good overall. They want to see Isaac Gifford, see if he can run with Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, and also Will Shepherd. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do that or what their plan is to do, because today I got a chance to listen to an offensive lineman from Colorado give his kind of take on he thinks they can run the ball and throw the ball against us. He likes the outlook on our offensive line versus their defensive line and their offensive line versus our defensive line, which may be just player talk because most of the country and analysts are not going to agree with that statement. They also do not respond to blitzes very well. I think Nebraska last week against UTEP didn't show a lot of blitz looks because of the screen game that we talked about on this preview. We talked about it. So if you don't listen, then that's up to you. But I told you how many times they were going to run screens. And I really think that affected how often we blitzed last week is we needed to have defensive linemen reading and looking for that outside screen, especially in those swinging gate-esque sets that they started to run. So I really do like the blitz looks this week. I think crossover motion, kind of like Frost had in his defenses, where guys are crossing over one another. They struggled with that last week. That's when North Dakota State came up with their sacks and pressures. And one thing I really want to emphasize, and everybody can agree, is it's important to hit Shadur. It's to get to him. And I think the half-second difference, because their offensive line was abysmal last year, and that we sacked them 7 times. If we want to get to a similar number like that, which would obviously help our case to win the football game, it's that half-a-second difference, because their offensive line definitely did improve by a half a second. There was that both touchdown passes that Shadur threw on deep balls were half a second difference. He was getting hit as he released it. Dylan had a similar one this weekend, but that half a second difference from North Dakota's defensive line to our defensive line, I think will make all of the world's difference. I think Nebraska, if they can make up that half a second and hit him as he's throwing or before he starts that motion, all of a sudden we're going to find ourselves in really good spots and they're going to have the football in a bad territory of ours. So obviously the blitz game's important. Shadur is not a great stepping through the pocket guy. Like, obviously, if there's a massive gaping hole, he can go through it, run for 10 to 15, slide down and celebrate for 14 minutes. But he's also a guy that when he escapes the pocket, it's going to be a spin to get out wide or a bubble to get out wide. He's not a guy that is going to be very successful going through the line when he looks to scramble. So look for that. Maybe an edge set from Cam Lemhart or Jamari Butler, more of a step through, let Nash kind of handle those guys up front the way we think he can. Ty Robinson also played a pretty good game last week, and he'll play a huge role in this one as well. Avoid the big plays. That's one of the main points I have for our defense against this offense, is that's what they feed off of. They like to go tempo when they get a big play on you. They had a few of them last year against us that they took advantage of. So look for Nebraska to kind of find ways around that. If they want to try and nickel and dime us down the field, they can. But when we got to make 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 stops, if they're going to do so, and that's very important. That's kind of the outlook on their offense. It's fast. They want to move. They got good weapons, but the game difference, obviously, everybody kind of knows this. So I'm not telling you anything that's blowing you out of the water. Hopefully you learned a few things. Is going to be the upfront presence. If our defensive line can get to that offensive line again, then we're going to find success, because I do think we can hold off these receivers with our experienced talent on the outside more. I just do. I think that that's what the case is going to be. I think the crowd is going to play a huge factor in staggering this offense. I think the toughest place they played last year was probably Oregon, which is about 15,000, 20,000 less seats than Memorial Stadium. And I don't think at that time Oregon really had, outside of a social media fandom anger towards this program, than we do. This is a long-standing rivalry that they've gotten the best of us the last 3 times. And when people say Memorial Stadium is going to be out for blood, they're going to be out for blood. So I expect it to be probably the 4th, if not the first, loudest game of my lifetime at Memorial Stadium. So it's going to be interesting to watch. On the defensive side of things, this is kind of the side of the ball where people were not very impressed with Colorado. It starts up front again, which we'll get into, but they only gave up 26 points. They faced a really good, experienced quarterback in Cam Miller at North Dakota State. He was pretty good throughout the game. They converted on 3rd downs. But this defense does have a couple of talented players and some guys moving around that we need to talk about. It looks like most of the time they're 4-down rushing. I'm going to say it looks most of the time to me as they're running a 4-3 multiple. They might not say that. They may not base that when they come out every time, but a lot of their looks are going to be 4-down rushers against your 5-0 linemen, and it's going to be very important to protect Raiola as it was last week. And I really think with what the product I saw from Colorado last week was, I think Nebraska can do so. So that's kind of the look on their defensive line. I don't think there's anybody that jumps out to me that's overly talented that we don't match up against well. I think at the linebacker position, they move their strong safety from last year, Trevor Woods, to outside linebacker. He really struggled at times covering backs against North Dakota State. One of the first plays of the game, he gives up a big pass play on a halfback angle pass because he just couldn't run with him. He takes weird angles. He's kind of still learning the position. And I think maybe a Ramir spot of a screen or maybe even that halfback angle look can be very successful for Nebraska on the offensive side of the ball. I was also very surprised at how they didn't defend the quarterback run very well. I mean, with the amount of times Shedeur scrambles out of the pocket in games, you got to imagine he's practicing that in practice. But they really struggled covering Cam Miller when it came to quarterback draws, extending play scrambles. Now, that may not be a huge thing for Dylan Raiola, but it definitely opens up looks for the Heinrich Haarberg sets. And it may not be very common, but I do think Nebraska can find a few places here and there where Haarberg going through the interior defensive line on a 3rd and 2 could be very successful. A read option look with Gabe Ervin, I don't see a way where Colorado's defensive front can stop Gabe Ervin, Dante Dowdell, and Haarberg at the same time. I mean, those sets would be nearly impossible for this defense to cover from what I've seen from them both last year and this year. And I think that's what you're going to see on Saturday, especially. They do have some big bodies. They do. They have some size, more than what we saw from UTEP. But I think, at least on paper, our guys are a little bit more physical. I think Gabe Ervin, Dante Dowdell, the 2 guys I just mentioned, the body blows that they'll lay in the holes are going to really tire this defense out and open up some things for Raiola in the passing game. So I think it's going to be more of a balanced look. I know a lot of people think that it's going to be a very run-heavy game for Nebraska. I think Dylan can kind of slice and dice where he sees fit because they're going to have to start loading the box after, Nebraska's rotating in 4 or 5 backs to really get some action against this defensive front of Colorado. They do like to blitz a lot. It's important to pick those up. So Dowdell, Emmett Johnson, Ramir, those guys are going to have to do some blitz pickups, and Raiola's got to get the ball out fast. I do think a lot of our offensive schemes I saw last week do put us in good situations to get the ball out fast and take shots when it makes sense. But we are going to see a more improved secondary than obviously we saw from UTEP this week. So making the correct reads, maybe getting the ball out a half a second sooner is going to be vital against a pretty skillful Colorado outside, including Travis Hunter, who's going to play both ways. I do love our outside blocking matchups as well. Looking at the Colorado DBs outside of Hunter and including Hunter, because I said this on the main show, the Play the Fight Song show, a few times now, is I really think Travis Hunter's being done a disservice playing both sides of the ball. He may play 130 snaps, and Dion can tell you he's not tired because he consistently takes a few plays off here and there, and you can't really blame the guy. I do think our outside blocking matchups, Fedone off the edge, I like Nayor and Banks' size against them. like they're going to be able to seal the edge. And Cam Miller and North Dakota State took advantage of that a few times last week, and I look for Nebraska to do the same. So a lot of edge runs, maybe getting Gabe going on the sweep and then laying body blows, kind of combo the two up. We're going to find ourselves in a really good spot. So that's kind of what I see from the defense. All in all, in the game, it's hard to sit here and be like, I think it's going to go this way and this way, because really, until you get there and you enter in the atmosphere and you kind of see the idea that Nebraska has for a game plan, it's tough to break it down further than that. All in all, I really don't see anything that jumps out that scares me about Colorado. I do think Dion, my personal opinion on Dion as a coach is he's a really good coach. I love the message he sends for the kids, those young dudes. He gives them a great structure. He sends the right messaging from all the things I've seen, and that's a lot because they share everything. But I do like him as a coach. I love Travis Hunter as a player. I just hate the team they coach and play for. That's all it is. So I'm excited for this matchup. It's going to be good for college football. Night game on NBC. It's going to be rocking. So let's represent Nebraska well on the field. Let's support the defense. I mean, we're going to get loud. It's going to be an absolute must-see atmosphere if you're a part of it, and hopefully you are. Thinking about last year and kind of incorporating into this year why maybe that blood is in the water for Nebraska fans. They weren't too kind, and I don't think they'll admit how important Jeff Sims turning the ball over was. So I think if we win the turnover battle, we're going to find ourselves in a very good spot. They're going to try and hit Dylan Raiola often. They know what he means to this squad, and they know what we expect of him later in the year. So they're going to try and get to him. They may even try and throw an ankle twist out there like they did against Martinez when he was taking him for a ride. So I look for extra protection from the Nebraska offensive line just to save our savior. Can we say that? Can we save our savior? Obviously, it's only through one game, but they're going to get after him a little bit, and that's going to be in their plans. I think we need to handle business this weekend. If you're dressed in red and you're there, it's a business trip. We got to get this one done, get our 50th win in the rivalry, and I think we can do so. Let's go into score prediction time. Before I give you a score prediction, shout out to our partner, No Rivals. Great hat brand, premium hats. They're adding teams by the day. Nebraska's not in there yet. They will be one day, and then we will just sell it out like we do everything else. But shout out to No Rivals. They're a great partner. Check all the teams they have out right now at shopnorivals.com. Makes a great gift, and you can get free shipping with code PTFS. Also, here's my score prediction. And if it's your first time here and you've never been to a Nebraska preview before on our channel, if you guess the score below and it hits, I'm sending you a No Rivals hat. You can pick any hat off their website, and I will send it to you. So I'm giving away a free hat. I know we had about 20 people join in last week and drop a score prediction, and one of them was 1 point off. So shout out to that guy. I hope he's back down below. Hope you hit it on the nose with Nebraska winning it, but I will give you a free hat if you guess the score prediction below correct. So let's go into mine. I got Nebraska winning this one 34-24. I do think Colorado will get their points. I do think Nebraska's defense will stumble at times because of the weapons on the outside, but I do not see a way that different defensive front can stop our depth at running back and limit Raiola through the passing game. I think the screen pass and little flat crossing routes are very tough for Colorado to defend, and I think we can take advantage. So I got Nebraska winning this one 34-24. I think it's going to be absolute madness in Memorial Stadium, and we couldn't ask for anything more. So that's kind of my whole take on the game. I look at the buffs. I do watch a lot of film, do a lot of research for these, so I hope you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, please hit the subscribe button and give it a like. A like can go a long ways on here to spread it out. If maybe your buddy's never watched me and now you're watching me, send it to him. Hopefully we can all get in here together, start a conversation all about Nebraska. I think we win this week. Simple as that. So I appreciate you being here. We'll catch up next week when we'll recap Colorado and preview UNI, and I'll tell you all about the Panthers because that's the type of sicko I am. I'm going to do the research, and I'll let you know what you should expect. And we hit it kind of on the nose last week with UTEP. I expect to do the same this week with Colorado and throughout the entire season. So I appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time. And until I talk to you, hopefully we get another Husker win. Go Big Red.